A good presenter is somebody who speaks with a lot of confidence in front of their audience. It's important that they're very relaxed as well, that they make their audience feel comfortable with what they're saying. They need to be able to engage their audience, so every word they say actually is interesting and the audience take it on board. It's very important to think about that first impression and what you actually give your audience. And if you have any distracting habits, for example, before you speak, often people will just touch their chin or scratch their head. So the first thing I tell people is think about how you're using your hands and warm them up before you start to get rid of any nervous tension. So one thing I get them to do is just to actually stretch their hands really strong before they start, and then clench them and then stretch them again and just shake them out like this. And what that does, it actually creates tension and then it releases it. And what it can help the presenter do is actually to feel the energy right to their fingertips. They'll be more likely then to use stronger gestures rather than lots of sort of frenetic small gestures, and it just helps to calm the energy. And also thinking about your stance, make sure that you are actually standing on 2 feet, which sounds very obvious, but when people present, their feet often have a life of their own. They'll start wandering around in some sort of rhythmic manner, or they'll slouch just onto one knee like this, which immediately takes away your status. So it's standing relaxed, but with a strong posture. Think about not just dipping the top of the spine, so you look forward like this. Immediately again, I've dipped my head, I've lost my status. It's important to realise that the way you actually feel as though you're coming across might not be the same as the way your audience actually perceive you. So it can be very useful to get some feedback from somebody else, a colleague for example. Ask them if you do show any habits that you don't want to with your body language. Well, the first thing to think about when you're thinking about nerves is slowing down. Because when you're nervous, you're going to speed up, your voice is going to speed up, and straight away the audience are going to start to lose track of what you're saying. So breathing is a really efficient way to help to control the nervous energy and slow down. When you arrive at the venue, it's important that you make sure everything is set up as you want it to be. So anything technical, make sure it's working. Try and have a run through before you actually start, so you're happy with everything. And one other thing to think about with the size of the venue is, will you be using a microphone? For example, will it be a fixed microphone in front of you? In which case, you won't be able to move, so it's going to affect your style. What you don't want to do is just sort of lean forward into it. You want to still keep your posture, but you need to be aware of it, because if you move your head away, obviously we won't be able to hear you. Even with a lapel mic, you've got to be careful that your mouth is in line with the microphone. And if you suddenly turn your head, then your voice is going to go over there rather than stay in line with the microphone. So these things are important to know about before you actually give your presentation. Often when we think about preparation, we think about preparing our notes, our visuals, all these things, but we don't give ourselves any attention. So think about how you can relax yourself. The deep breathing is always very important to release tension. Think about your face in particular, because your face is going to affect your voice. And if you've got tension around the mouth, around here, your mouth will seize up and your voice will come out rather monotone and quiet. So just think about exaggerating the movement in your mouth when you speak. Maybe just silently mouth a few tongue twisters, just to get these muscles relaxed. So that when you do speak, your face is relaxed, you're more likely to smile and be animated when you speak, and your voice is going to come out with a much clearer quality. A second way that really helps is knowing your opening, so that you know how you're going to start. And I give the advice of learning the first 3 sentences off by heart, so you know exactly what you're going to say. And there's no hesitation, there's no umming or erring. Make them short and snappy sentences, because they're much easier to deliver. And the audience then, they'll hook on to what you're saying straight away. We can always deal with awkward questions, first of all, by preparing for them. So try and brainstorm them first of all, so that you're really ready for them and you've actually thought about answers. That'll be the first thing that can help you. But obviously, there's always going to be that question that you can't answer for whatever reason, you don't want to answer, or it's not really a question, it might be a statement or even an accusation. So what we want to do is to manage the audience's expectations. And maybe before you start the question and answer session, actually say to the audience, there may be some questions that I won't have the time to actually go into the detail that this question requires. So what I will ask you to do is email me the question so that I can actually give you a thorough response afterwards. When you see eyes glazing over in an audience, one way to try and bring them back is to ask a question. And you can tell them that you're going to do this by saying to them, I'd like to ask you all a question. You'll find or pick up their concentration again and they'll listen to what you're going to say. Another way that can help is to move towards a certain section of the audience, particularly if you think there's a certain section where they seem to have drifted off a bit. Just by moving towards them, you'll find that they'll start to be more aware of you and then you'll lift their concentration. To leave your audience on a high, you need to leave on a high first of all. But it's important that you have the energy and enthusiasm right at the end of a presentation. Often when someone finishes, they've done all this hard work, presented really well, and they end up with, that's basically it. And it really destroys the good presentation. So you want to finish as you started with a really strong ending, something that will maybe leave the audience to think about. So you might end, for example, with a quote, with a question to the audience, or maybe a cause for action, something that they'll take away and remember, and keep it short and succinct. One other trap that people sometimes fall into at the end, they'll say in conclusion, and then they'll go on for another 5 minutes, so it's not really a conclusion. Once you say the word in conclusion, you grab back the audience's attention. So you want to make the most of it and have a really sharp, punchy ending right at the end, so they feel like they've remembered that key message and they've got something to take away from the presentation.